This is Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Hooey boy, this is Wretched Radio. Another reminder, there is nothing different about the DNA of Americans than it is anywhere else on the globe. Story number one, the Ethiopian church sending an evangelical to jail. Why? Because he got into a little argument with a couple of Ethiopian Christians. And so what did they do? They threw the evangelical into jail. You say, well, that's an Ethiopian. And I say, what's the difference? What's the difference? Why wouldn't we think that even people that are in a church aren't capable of doing mean things to other Christians who are actual Christians? There's nothing different. For instance, there is a story. I'm not really all that familiar with this particular organization, but it's an organization nonetheless. It's one of these Baptist groups that I'm not very familiar.
Got to narrow it down some.
Well, I don't know what the name of the group is. It's a big Baptist group, and there's a couple of churches.
Google big Baptist group.
Well, it's not one that I'm very familiar. They've got about 18. Well, let me find the name of it. There's like 1,800 churches in this particular. No, that's not it right there. It's the Baptist Confederation of Organized Baptists in the Union of the Baptist People.
Gotcha.
Somewhere in there, one or two of the words. Now, where did that thing go? This is kind of...
The Confederated Union of the Baptists United for Baptist Theology and
Let's
Baptism.
just go with that one, shall we? Here it is right here. Remember, the most organized program on this station at this time. 2 LGBTQ inclusive churches reevaluating relationship with CBF, Cooperative Baptist Fellowship. That is exactly what I said, and you sent me on this wild goose chase.
See how I am?
They're calling a new policy that bans married persons who are LGBTQ from working as missionaries or in supervisory positions unjust, and one that reinforces bigotry towards LGBTQ people. Now, that's the sentence that caught my attention. You've got these people who are gay-affirming Christians, if we can use that term, that are calling those of us who say, well, the Bible's really clear on this, bigots. Bigots. That is harsh language. There is nothing different between Ethiopian professing Christians putting Christians in jail than here in the United States of America. Here's another example. Norway forcibly removes 12-year-old son after Christian family decides to homeschool. Great. A Canadian Christian family was crying out for help. Their 12-year-old boy was forcibly removed from their home in Norway because they took the kid out to homeschool him. He was being bullied in school. They thought it'd be safer at home. The government said, no, that's child abuse. They have video of the government chasing and tackling their son before taking him away from their apartment. I think he's been gone now for over a week. You say, well, those are just Norwegians. That could never happen in America. Really? Do you watch The View? The View gals at Mike Pence saying that he's crazy, something like that. Now, well, I disagree with their caricature here. Nevertheless, Joy Behar said regarding Mike Pence, it's one thing to talk to Jesus. It's another thing when Jesus talks to you. That's called mental illness, if I'm not correct, hearing voices. Now, I don't know where they got that from with Mike Pence. I don't think that he believes that. Nevertheless, not relevant to this particular point. She thinks that somebody who's a Christian has mental illness. Why would we not think that these same people aren't capable of putting away mentally ill people like Christians? Absolutely nothing. Oh, here's another story to Great Britain. Richard Page, 71 years old. He's a magistrate. He told a tribunal that he lost his role on the bench because he expressed his personal view that a child up for adoption would be better looked after by a man and a woman rather than a gay couple. And for that, he lost his seat. So now he's suing the Lord Chief Justice for religious discrimination, for simply stating it's better that a child has a man and a woman.
Wow.
Christian, not trying to be henny penny, not trying to suggest that it's the end of the world as we know it, but it pretty much is coming to the end of Western civilization as we know it. Just be ready. That's all. Just be ready. Get ready for an adjustment. Get ready for your pastor to be potentially put in jail. It used to happen all the time. John Bunyan, and he was in jail for 12 years, and look at how productive he was. Well, how did he get there? Because his government, British people, didn't want that dissenting voice in culture, so they threw him in the hoosegow. We kind of overlook that. A Christian preacher was in jail for 12 years. I think there's a Richard Vermbrandt movie coming out, Tortured for Christ, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know much about it, but I do know his story is harrowing. They put him in jail because he spoke out in Romania, I believe against communism, if I recall the details, beat his feet, tortured him with hot pokers.
Voice of the Martyrs, right?
Yeah, and
Is the organization he started?
Yeah, there's apparently there's some fighting between the family and Voice of the Martyrs about
always is
rights and all of that stuff. Nevertheless, how are those Romanians different than, say, Hillary Clinton? No difference. Or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. What's the difference? Well, our Supreme Court would never do such a thing. Why not? The safeguards don't exist anymore. We need to remember that they've taken the issue of sexuality and they've put it on the level of being racist or being mentally ill or being out of step, out of touch with American values. Oh, all righty then. The reminder, This is perhaps a bit hyperbolic, but I think it serves to make the point. How do you react when you hear about a pedophile? You know how the left is increasingly responding? Christian who believes that marriage is between a man and a woman? What's the matter with them? That's how we're being seen. By the way, speaking of politicians who think that way, apparently Justin Trudeau now said that it was just a joke when he corrected the woman who said mankind, and he said we say people kind or person kind or whatever. Said he's not very good at telling jokes, and that was just a joke. Oh. So we can use the word mankind? Is that?
That's why he cut her off to make the point?
Yeah, because it was so he was so aching to exercise the inner stand-up comedian in him that he cut her off in order to... the times, they are definitely a-changing. And as long as we're on the subject, church, are you ready for this? This is a rather troubling article. There's something called virtual reality porn. I don't really care to know how it works exactly, but maybe you've seen those commercials where you put on these glasses. They're pretty big and bulky. I suspect they're gonna start to look like my little cheaters that I wear from Walgreens. You know, like this. Remember when a car phone used to be the size of a shoebox that you used to have to put up to the side of your head?
Weighed like a small anchor?
Yeah, they'll get these things down. But right now you have to put this big box in front of your face, and you feel like you are like in it. I was talking. Oh, I know. I was talking to a young man who did this, and it was one of those, a game thing that you play like a regular video game, but you're immersed in it. He said it was really scary. I mean, you felt like, yikes, they're actually after me. It takes it to a whole nother level. Well, now, virtual porn. That's what our culture needs, isn't it? Virtual porn. If you haven't read Mark Regnerus's book, a lot of people, hold on, it's called Cheap Sex. Got it right here, matter of fact. He's basically saying that pornography and virtual porn is not going to help. One of the reasons that men are delaying marrying women, they don't need to. He also stated contraception, the hookup culture, no need for marriage, cohabitation. Who does this affect? Women who are looking around going, aren't there any men? Quote, our current situation could be compared to that of an astronaut going into space and leaving the gravity of the Earth's surface. Removed from the Earth's gravity, terrestrial objects and bodies start to behave strangely or to suffer damaging consequences. Water floats eerily in wobbly globules. Bodies become disoriented, muscles deteriorate. As sex is removed from the natural gravity of marriage, procreation, God's way of doing it, Relationships start to take odd and unnatural forms. Persons become sexually disoriented, and the muscles of virtue weaken. This is what's going on in our culture. Church, we need to be, I'm sorry, we've got a sex-crazed, very confused culture on this issue, and that includes, dare I say, most of the young men who are sitting in our churches right now. He predicts, Mark Regnerus, the shape of relationships in 2030, no different. The current trends won't be reversed as sex is only going to become cheaper and more perverted. Church, are we ready? Not for 20 years from now. Right now. And these are the people in our world. These are the people, by the way, that have access to your children. These are the people that are potential spouses for your children. And these are the people who are going to someday darken the doorstep of a church. Are we ready to deal with this brave new world? This is Wretched Radio. Don't forget, if you would like to hear the entire daily broadcast, simply visit wretched.org, go to iTunes, figure out your favorite Android listening platform, and you can listen to the entire program every single day, downloaded to your listening device for free. Well, thanks to our monthly supporters called the Gospel Partners. If you'd like to partner with us, we'd be very, very grateful. Simply visit wretched.org.